Throughout history, mankind has searched for knowledge, and the ability to relay this wisdom to other people has only made itself readily convenient in the last few decades. The impact the occult has had on modern society since then is astounding, as centuries of power and control have allowed its systems to root itself deeply in the way we live our lives on a day-to-day basis. Since the earliest of times, mankind has searched for answers to many questions, and gradually, as we evolved as a species, our knowledge and ability to manipulate our surroundings became more advanced. It wasn't until the Neolithical age that humans began farming and forming small societies. However, harvesting some crops is thought to have dated even earlier, to 12,000 BC, with the Natufians. The earliest known place of worship or belief-type practice can be found in Turkey, at the site of the Göbekli Tepe. Humans have always asked questions about themselves, nature, space, and overall the quest for the meaning of life. Religions were created, and gods of nature were put in place to represent the fundamental elements of the universe. This was an attempt to explain the questions people had amongst their group. Throughout time, religion and spiritual belief evolved, and became a way for higher powers to train people from birth to think in a certain way. The truths about life became hidden meaning, and symbolism was then used to confuse the average person, or the unbeliever. Hidden within the Bible are several truths about life, but these morals are well hidden in fairy tale stories and metaphorical interpretations. This strategy is used to keep the majority of the population unaware. However, if someone does learn the secrets hidden, only then are they deemed worthy. The devil was created to scare people into living a certain way, and to keep the masses away from these secrets of the occult. Even the word occult alone has a negative, taboo-ridden aura about it amongst the common individual within our society. When one digs deeper, they soon discover that studying the occult is merely gazing into the past, present, and future, and understanding the elemental energies around us and using this to one's advantage. Science, mathematics, astrology, astronomy, religion, and the universal link all this has to one another is studied. Obviously, when one starts getting into the supernatural or magic aspect of things, it gets more technical. However, the occult is for the most part harmless. So why then do people have such a bad image about it, even after all these facts?
Here is a mystery. Throughout the ages, in all the various religions of man, there is one constant: the personality of the being we call Satan. In Sumeria, he was Baal. In Egypt, Set. In Persia, Aran. In China, he was chief of the warlocks called Wu. There is always the dark god, the fallen god. There's always Satan. And there are always those who, in their search for God, seem to find Satan instead.
The devil? Who wants the devil? I don't want the devil.
I think that's what's wrong with this country, because they don't believe in God and they don't believe in hereafter, and they've got no religious, and as far as I'm concerned, that's all I've got to say to you.
Symbols such as the yin-yang or the Ouroboros, the dragon which consumes its own tail to represent the concept of infinite, is a fundamental aspect to occult thinking. Even the use of tarot cards, an age-old practice linked with occultism, has been studied by our government electives. Throughout the ages, people like Plato, Nostradamus, Einstein, Isaac Newton, prime ministers and presidents of countries have been linked to the practices of occultism. This is not such a bad thing in most cases, except when those with power abuse their positions and are not rightfully punished. An example of this can be found in a more recent case, where the great native legend Geronimo's family pressed charges against Yale University and its secret society group Skull and Bones.
Geronimo died a prisoner of war, his body buried in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Now, 100 years later, his family is suing to get his remains back.
After a while, it hurts you inside.
Harlan Geronimo is the warrior's great-grandson. He and other descendants are suing Yale University and the secret society known as the Order of Skull and Bones, claiming Geronimo's skull was stolen back in 1918 by Yale students, members of the secret order. One of the alleged grave robbers, Yaley Prescott Bush, the father and grandfather of Presidents 41 and 43.
When you desecrated a grave like of this nature, you upset the spirits. And sooner or later, the spirits will come after you.
For decades, members called bonesmen dismissed the suggestion as a hoax. But a bonesman's letter written in 1918, discovered 2 years ago at Yale, suggests otherwise. Quote, "The skull of the worthy Geronimo the Terrible exhumed. Now, safe inside, the T. T is believed short for the tomb, the bonesman's private club."
I spoke with several bonesmen who told me that inside the tomb there is a glass display case containing a skull, and the bonesmen have always called it Geronimo.
Author Alexandra Robbins wrote a book on the secret order.
If it is found that Geronimo's skull is really in there, that's a crime.
Geronimo's descendants have also sued President Obama and Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, hoping to recover Geronimo's remains at Fort Sill.
He died as a prisoner of war. Still, he was not free, and he was not free to be buried in the old customary ways that the Apache would have been buried at that time.
Now, Geronimo's great-grandson says he's willing to take a DNA test. He and his family want Yale University and Skull and Bones members to tell what they know. We attempted to reach Skull and Bones. No one returned our calls. Yale says the university does not have Geronimo's remains and that it does not speak for the secret society. So a lot of unanswered questions.
And how does Yale know that they don't have them then?
Well, there you go. But they're looking into it. Technically, they could subpoena and possibly see whether, in fact, anybody will say, oh, yeah, well, that happens to be the skull, but unlikely.
What makes this accusation worse is the fact that Geronimo fought with his Apache peoples to defend their land from the U.S. and Mexican armies. Geronimo and 35 others surrendered to General Nelson A. Miles in 1886. Before these conflicts, the entire continent of North America was dominated by its native peoples. These people had defended the land since the Vikings. Now, native peoples who still wish to live their traditional lifestyles are forced to do so on reservations, similar to the idea of segregating them into concentration camps. For centuries now, the Church, merged with the government, has enslaved and destroyed civilizations all over the world merely for what these people believe in. It is known around the world that for the most part we are free to believe and practice whatever religion one chooses. However, history proves that these dominating forces have attempted to destroy these values. Examples of these events include the Spanish Inquisition, the Salem witch trials, and even the Spanish Catholics' destruction of the Mayan Codex, essentially their Bibles, written before the time of Christ. Religion has often caused wars and conflict, hence the term holy war. However, if people used religions for what they should be used for, cultural heritage would last a lifetime. As time has passed, it would seem that science is taking the form of religion, and it is to no surprise that most studies in the scientific field can be related to occultism. Things like alchemy, chemistry, and physics would have been considered magical or demonic, proving to have supernatural abilities, and a death sentence would have surely been applied.
Now, our national anthem.
Drums out of the darkness. Listen well. Drums beating like thunder, straight from hell. Trumpets are blaring. The time's come round. Satan is here to claim his ground. There's an earth that's green. There's an earth that's free. There's a place for you and a place for me. But the bleeding hearts wouldn't let it be. We don't need them anymore.